Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's Dan. I'm back again for Frankly Fridays with Dan and Helgi, soon to be Helgi. Helgi will be on his way very soon. But here to chat through the week in Chelsea uh, with respect to the defeats to Brentford and Real Madrid, a bit of an ownership update, and a little bit of a preview for um, the weekend's match against Southampton. So, um, glad to have everybody in the chat. I see Strip is here still, and a little bit of spillover from the previous show. So, really good to have everybody here. Uh, but yeah, I see some of you in the chat. But yeah, the show isn't done. It's a new show, and it's me and Helgi just chatting through the week. Um, so that's it. Yeah, Coach Hiller left the previous show, and now it's me in the chat. So hello to everybody in the chat. Hopefully you are all keen to strap in for another hour or so. And yeah, Coach Hiller I think is going for breakfast. It's dinner time in my part of the world, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about just the week in Chelsea. I think a little bit depressing is the word that I would use. Brentford was not a game that sounded like Freaky Fridays. No, Frankly Fridays. That's it, Frankly Fridays. Um, but yeah, a little bit depressing if you're a Chelsea fan because, of course, two big defeats against Brentford and Real Madrid. I think probably the more damaging one being Real Madrid, given the context of the fact that it was in the Champions League and Chelsea have no realistic chance of winning the Premier League. So, uh, negative things to chat about this week. Maybe slight positives with respect to the ownership. Uh, but and then a Southampton game to preview. But welcome to Helgi. Helgi's back. Glad I'm not on my own here. How are you doing, Helgi? Think you're on mute, brother. I can't hear you. Can anybody hear Helgi? I can't hear Helgi.
Now
Oh, there you
I
go.
muted myself. Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I said that it's not the best way to have a discussion on the back of two defeats on the spin because of the manner they happened, because of how unexpected they were due to our consistent run of positive results and actually wins before the international break. But nevertheless, it's great joy to be here and chat with you again. We have our weekly dose of our show, which makes us feel great. Whether we, of course, after wins, and of course, we have a way to discuss and to let's say relax a bit after this kind of exhausting week that we have had, all things considered. So very happy to be back here to have our next episode of our show, and I hope that people will enjoy it.
Yeah. What's up to everybody in the chat? Big up to Steve. Big up to Claire. Big up Just Fowler. I see a couple of new faces in here as well, which is really always cool to see. Phantom, I think it is. Very cool. Having no confidence in Southampton, I must admit I'm somewhat there. But Helgi, let's get straight into it to chat a little bit about the games. Firstly, of course, Brentford, reminiscent of a little bit of the West Brom game this time last year, literally in April as well. We got summarily beaten thoroughly by West Brom, 5-2 at home, and a similar thing happened with regard to Brentford. They just seemed to overrun our midfield. We were far too open. The balance in midfield was all over the place. Um, I didn't like many aspects of it as well. Ruben Loftus-Cheek I thought was very poor. Um, in particular, everybody was particularly poor. But yeah, I just think Brentford looked more energetic. They pressed us particularly. Big up to Mikhail. What's up? And yeah, they pressed us relentlessly. It was almost irritating to watch because Chelsea couldn't play at all. You know, you always want your team to play, and Brentford simply wouldn't allow us to play. And they were full value for their 3 points. In fact, I was only shocked that it was only 4 goals. I thought it could have been about 6 or 7. That's how bad Chelsea were on the day. Defending was all over the place, and yeah, just the manner of the goals, the you know lots of the defenders smothering the ball. I actually turned the game off after 61 minutes because I couldn't be bothered. I was so angry. I threw my bottle at the wall. I was just like so frustrated. You know, don't advocate for that behavior for anybody in the chat, but yeah, I just had enough, and I was like, I'm not watching this. So I turned it off. But yeah, what I saw in the first 60 minutes, 61 minutes, did not fill me with much confidence. But yeah, I don't know how you saw the match. Helgi, give me your little summary of it.
Yeah, it was very unexpected and frustrating. We did the preview this time last week, and we couldn't have expected something like that. Of course, you have those kind of results in the Premier League more often than not, but the manner, as I said, in which we were beaten was totally unexpected and unexplainable at the same time. Yeah, it was a lot of place to be angry. If you had this kind of problem of so yourself in terms of your reaction, I have had a similar one in 16-17 when Gary Cahill scored an own goal against Man City at the end of the first half. But fortunately, it ended up
We
much
turned it
better than
around. Yeah, we turned it
yeah,
around. Yeah.
we've done, and it's one of the most, let's say, exciting and joyful games I have ever had as a Chelsea fan in all these 12 years. But nevertheless, I think it was about the Brentford game. It was unexpected the manner in which we lost our usual compactness, and the fact that what makes things worse is that it came after much anticipated goal from Rudiger from 39
It's
yards out,
about
which
it was
that
about time. Eh? He had about
yeah,
17 attempts
and
across the season.
everyone, yeah, in our minds had projected a totally different scenario. So everyone expected him to score such a goal in a decisive game to let's say make us, for example, break a low block and end up as a winning goal. But the thing is that it went totally 180 degrees on the other direction, and I feel very sorry to not have also the time to celebrate such a quality goal. And also in terms of the midfield, I hated how we were overrun, not only against Brentford, but we will talk a bit later about the Real Madrid game. As you said, Loftus Cheek, I think, was the most underwhelming one in that 11. I was a bit worried when I saw his name. Um, in the so 1 hour before the game when the lineups were out. But the fact is that we were I think even if you play 90 or 180 minutes more, you still will have the same outcome from that game because we really weren't at it, and Brentford totally deserved the win that day. We could have been punished even in the first half, and it was sort of irony that Brentford, so in this game last week, managed to convert all that amount of chances that they had in the reverse fixture, which they created and couldn't, due to Mendy's spectacular performance that day. And as I said, it was underwhelming, but this kind of games happen to every team. So in perspective, it didn't seem a cause for concern, uh, or wouldn't have seemed it if we hadn't been beaten by Real Madrid in midweek. But less said is better about that game, and I feel that we. So it's tough to talk in this moment because we had the other loss, and I would be talking with more, let's say, freedom when it if we had turned it around, so we left that before Brentford game behind and gave a totally different performance against Real Madrid in midweek, but unfortunately we didn't. We conceded three, and then we in mm, so in the at the weekend we conceded four. So there is a problem that has to be solved immediately, and hopefully we will be on the right track from tomorrow. But about the Brentford game, I think it's one of those games that you easily want to you want to forget as soon as possible because we weren't at it. The goal was, I think, one in a million years that happened. It was the first long range goal from open play, I think, since 2007, and in the Premier League from that distance, which furtherly demonstrates the lack of our attacking intent that day. And yeah, basically, I was disappointed with more or less everyone. And So the sooner we forget it, the better it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to bring up a couple of things that have been mentioned in the chat. Like, I think it was Mikhail who said, and big up to Declared, who seems to sympathize with me because he said he turned the game off and went back to bed. And I said I'm very much appreciative of that. Declared there, and we see a follower there from Zambia, which is very close to where I come from, Zimbabwe. So big up to you. Uh, Thank you for watching us, and please stay on the channel. Hit a like and a subscribe. But yeah, I want to bring up something that Mikhail said, and he mentioned how the defensive approach seems to have changed, and we seem to be a man short on defense. And I don't think it's a coincidence because we played a four at the back against Brentford. There we go. There's Mikhail's comment. He says defensive approach seems to have changed. We're always a man short defensively past few games. Um, I actually didn't watch the Real Madrid game because it was at 3 in the morning, so I had work the next day, so I couldn't stomach that. It's just such an awkward time for me. Um, but yeah, from the perspective of the Brentford game, which I did watch, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're a man short, given the fact that we played four at the back, because of course we know that the three at the back formation with the two holding midfielders or the two double sixes in the middle gives us a lot of defensive cover in transition. So having four at the back and losing a defender and sort of gaining a midfielder and having midfielders like Kante and Loftus Cheek and Mason Mount who are not positionally disciplined and not defensively minded also caused a lot of problems. So we were really, really vulnerable in transition, and it brought back to me um, sort of the Frank Lampard era where it was all helter skelter and a sort of very gung ho approach to the game, and it was just all over the place. And you saw even against Real Madrid, Thiago Silva making uncharacteristic errors, like with respect to allowing Karim Benzema two free headers. I mean, it's just ridiculous, and he puts both of them in. So, um, and I just it was silly things against Brentford, like Janelt made two key third man runs and he scored from both of them. And for Eriksen's goal, all three Chelsea defenders go and smother the pass from whoever it is, Mbuemo or something, and then um, Eriksen is completely free. No one is covering him, and then he slots the ball in. So I mean, three of the Brentford goals were from basic defensive mistakes, and the fact that we conceded not even 100 seconds after we scored is just it's also ridiculous. I mean, it's a lack of game management. It's just a it was just really poor, and we could say that it's an isolated incident, and it can be, but this is sort of indicative of things that have been happening under Frank Lampard, and it's something that's been plaguing us when we play four at the back. So I don't want to get too carried away and say it's like a systematic thing, because of course we had a run where we won, I think it was 13 out of 15 games, but previously, and we were playing very well. But it was glaringly obvious the manner of the defeat um, that we had. That was quite alarming. But Stripe asking, when does Chile come back? I believe he'll be back August, September next season, probably
Mm.
towards the end of September. End of September. I know he's doing light ball work and things like that. But yeah, if Fashi Kennedy is saying, I don't expect Mendy to start tomorrow. If he does, then we are screwed. I wouldn't say that too much. Pardon the language, of course. But what I would say is what bothers me is Mendy's made two very bad errors in two key games, and one obviously very high profile against Real Madrid, and another high profile in the Premier League. But he made one bad error where he passed the ball to Ivan Toney, and Ivan Toney lobbed him, and it didn't go in. But then he does the same thing against Real Madrid, where he fails to pass what I thought was a very basic ball to Rudiger. And I thought the decision making for sorry, we're kind of crossing over into the Real Madrid game, but there are parallels. Um,
Mhm.
I thought the decision making from Mendy with respect to the Rudiger blunder in the Real Madrid game, which allowed Benzema to score his hat trick goal, was really curious because he came all that way to get the ball and then lay off like a 2 or 3 yard pass, which he made. I don't understand that. Like I thought he would maybe take a touch and hoof it back outfield or try and find Reece James on at right wing back or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, it was a really, really weird pass. And you also learn as a defender never to pass across goal. And he just gave the Benzema the opportunity to press Rudiger, and I just thought it was so strange. Um, but question here from Elvis. I'll come to you now, Helgi. Must Tuchel play Loftus? This guy made us lose against Brentford and slowed our speed in the second half against Real. Trying Christensen at the right back was the worst mistake. Elvis coming from Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks for the love from the home continent of Africa. Please hit a like and subscribe. We always love to hear from you guys. Um, to be honest, I don't think I want Tuchel to play Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think he's a good squad player, a good option to have off the bench, but I don't want him starting in a defensive midfield role. I think he's liable defensively. And what I said on a podcast as well that I was on after the game is that what irritated me the most about Ruben is that he's a big guy who's very good at turning with the ball and creating an attack. And he didn't do any of that against Brentford. And he didn't protect the ball well at all. So that irritated me. And I wouldn't go so far as to say he made us lose against Brentford, but he had a particularly poor performance that didn't help things. Helgi, I've said a lot. We've digested a couple of things from the chat. I'm going to pass it back to you. What do you think?
Um, I'm going through shortly either of the three, all of the three, the three topics that were mentioned by you and people in the chat. Starting first of all with Loftus, um, I think he has to be sold sooner rather than later. Has been one of my favorite players in the last 3 months under Sarri, and he was very influential. And I would go as far to say that he did the exactly the opposite of what he's doing now. Before that injury, he got in that friendly game in Boston 1 week or 10 days before the Europa League final, showed that he was one of the most coordinated players in that organic that we had that year. Could balance very well the forward rounds, the height and the technical work on the ground, which is something that you rarely see from the most experienced players, and not from a player who was, let's say, 22 or 23 at the time. And unfortunately, he has more or less lost all of it now. When you can rely on him in theory because you show those signs of revisionism, those glimpses of remembering the Loftus of Europa League later stages. Against Frankfurt, he scored at the bridge and the return leg in the semi-final, and was very influential as I said, in the last 3 months that year, and was very, very active with his body language as well, which it would make those runs with the ball, with drive forward in empty spaces, connect the let's say the front of the defense and the attack very fluently. And now he can't even coordinate himself, and this was seen against Brentford. And also in the other games, I saw sort of lethargic approach from him, also in 50-50 duels, which has been one of the biggest issues to notice from a player that has shown that he can be very good in this kind of situation. So if he didn't show this kind of this kind of absence, if he showed this kind of absence of physicality from the outset, I would say that it just is a weakness of him. But he has shown, and now he isn't showing it anymore. And you can't have the luxury to wait for him much longer, because he is now a well-established player. He's not young anymore. So every time that he gets on the pitch is just a sort of experiment and a risk that you, at least badly affect the flow of the team when we have possession. And this is why I'm saying that you can't wait for him anymore, especially in a period that the team desperately needs balance in terms of personnel. So we need to have similar profiles when it comes to the first 11 and the bench in different positions, which we actually lack. And one of them is because I have mentioned in our earlier episodes, and I'm mentioning it now because we're talking about Ruben. So having Jorginho, Kovacic, and Kante on one side, and having Loftus-Cheek, Barkley, and Saúl on the other is day and night difference, and we have to solve it. And solving this starts by selling the latter three, or Saúl sending him back at Atletico, because you can't wait for them anymore. And I agree with you that he was one of the most underwhelming players against Brentford, and also in the minutes that he came on against after he came on and he played against Real. About Mendy, it has been an issue in terms of his distribution. I think that at his best, he's one of the most prolific players when it comes to distribution. I hate let's say creating conclusions based on episode or one or two occasions, because every keeper has its negative moments. You can't find a keeper who is immaculate and has all the flawless feature that everyone wants to see. And of course, these are the cases that you may just say it's unfortunate that happened for him in this kind of game after this, while we were trailing, because it could have easily happened in an occasion that it wouldn't have affected the final result and we would have still won the game. It has happened to Alisson, for example, at Liverpool last year against Leicester, and Liverpool still ended up winning the game and no one mentions it anymore. And he did it in his own box. So it's not a good way to crucify a player in conclusive manner for just a mistake like that. I was very angry that he did that mistake. He made that mistake in that particular moment against such an opponent and at such a stage with such a result to fight for. So it was sort of everything against him and the team at the moment in terms of bad fortune. But I don't agree with the claim that he should be dropped, because people easily forget that Kepa had much bigger problems that he has, either when you talk about shot stopping or the work with his feet, with the goal that Mane scored last season, the second game week of the season, being a perfect example of what of his struggles with the ball at his feet as well. Um, One thing that I doubt about the incident with Benzema, I'm not sure about it because I'm too angry to be totally focused on the incident when the replays or the goal were being, let's say, transmitted. I doubt if the surface of the pitch has made any kind of effect in the pass, because it's as I saw, maybe the ball could have stuck in the ground and it hasn't had the connection for Mendy to release it early enough. I'm not saying this for sure, but I saw that the many players slipped that day, and then this may have been one of the reasons. But yeah, it is an issue, but not a big one to say that he should be dropped, because people should think that he's a great keeper and he's one that can be a profile that we can rely on, and also a profile similar to whom we should sign the other players as well under the new ownership, I think. So very unfortunate for him to concede in this way, to make that howler. But I think he's a great character and we learn from it. So there is no reason to drop him on the bench. And about the last topic that Mikhail mentioned earlier, I have never been in favor of us reverting to a back four, and I say this even when the discussion had been at the beginning of the season. Our back three isn't defensive. I can, let's say, persist on this, because the wing backs are supposed to be attacking. It's a different thing that we don't have Chile and haven't had Reese in major parts of the season, but the lack of attacking excellence from Alonso and Aspi doesn't make us a defensive team. And also, this was sort of indication from everybody who has expected us to be more creative under back four. That look at what happens when you change the system and let's say play a team that can press high very fluently with such a good organization like they did the day. So for me, it's still three at the back, and we are still in a period that it's more a problem of personnel rather than system. So eventually, we should stick to a back three. So this is all in all what I think about the three topics we talked about. The we you said and the people in the comment mentioned.
Yeah, excellent job, and well done for highlighting what they said in the comments there, Helgi. Good job. One thing I want to talk about, particularly with Mendy, is like you say, I was really irritated with the error itself, and also against Brentford itself. But the
Yeah.
thing is, memories in football are very short, and we forget in the Carabao Cup final, not even like what 6 weeks ago, Mendy's making a ridiculous save from double save from Sadio Mane, where he tips it over the bar and prevents it from being 1-0. Um, and I think to sort of call into question Edouard Mendy's position is a little bit ridiculous at the moment. We've got to allow him some chances to make mistakes. He's only human, and he'd be the first one to recognize the mistake that he made against Real Madrid and against Brentford. But I think that the thing is that these are the kinds of mistakes you need to expect when you become a team that likes to play out from the back. I mean, the first instinct you're training your goalkeeper to instill in their game is not to clear it up the field, but to recycle possession and then uh, start an attack again. So this is the thing: is when you do that, you've got to accept that these kinds of mistakes will happen. The moments when they happen are key, and like the thing is, if we highlight the two incidents there, uh, Mendy gets away with the one with Ivan Toney, but doesn't get away with the one from Karim Benzema. Obviously, that's probably due to the difference in class between the two players, and also the situations were slightly different. Tony had a little bit of a difficult angle from which to finish from, and he made a bit of a poor decision. But the thing is, that's what you kind of have to accept is that these kinds of errors are going to happen, especially with a goalkeeper as well whose first instinct is not to play out from the back. I think, though, it's important as well to give Edouard Mendy a lot of credit, given the fact that it's not his natural game, and I think he's evolved quite well, and he's used sort of the artillery that he has to great effect, and he's grown as a goalkeeper as well. He's improved with his feet. He'd probably be the first to admit he's not the best with his feet. He's not an Edison. Um, but that doesn't mean that he's not serviceable with his feet either. Um, I think if we look at the Champions League final goal that Kai Havertz got, who started that
Right.
attack? Edouard Mendy started it with a key pass out to Chilwell, who then lays it off to Mason Mount, who then puts the defense splitting pass in through for Kai Havertz. So it's easy for us to have short memories and not to highlight what a tremendous player Edouard Mendy has been for us in the nearly 2 seasons he's been with us now. So I would be the first one to defend him and say that he needs to maintain his position. And I think we just take the rough with the smooth. I didn't know that stat from Coachella there that Mendy's made one error per game. So I think that's one thing that we could perhaps work on. Perhaps if he's making these kinds of errors, it depends on what kinds of errors I would have to say.
Yeah.
If it's one from passing out from the back, or it's necessarily like not claiming a cross or something like that. Or what kind of errors are we seeing? And I'm sure that the coaching staff will be on top of this. But I think that's one thing that needs to be a little bit improved there. And McCar's making some good points here. He says that's why I'm convinced it's the instructions that confuse him and Kefir. Both at times there is a time to clear and a time to recycle possession. So I think that comes with an ownership of the player themselves take it upon themselves to make the best decision in the situation. I think in the Tony example, Mendy just had a lot of time and he made a poor connection with the pass. So it was the right decision to recycle possession. With the Benzema one, it's the right decision just to hoof it out because he's too far up the pitch and there's no one, there's only Rudiger around him. and to make the key pass he needed to Reece out wide is a little bit of a difficult one, and it's likely to be intercepted. So I think just coming out and clearing the ball would have been the right decision there. So I think that's probably what needs to improve. But I think what we need to do, as I said, just in summary, is to accept this kind of mistake is likely to happen more frequently than we would like if we are going to be committed to playing out from the back. But I don't know, Helgi, if you want to transition on to talking about Real Madrid, and you can maybe give us the Real Madrid game, give us a summary of your thoughts, and then we can engage with the guys in the chat. Lots of people mentioning Hazard. Um, and Elvis here saying generally our coach goalkeeper defensive flanks as well. We only need a serious striker and one creative midfielder like Hazard was. Um, good work to both of us. Thanks, Elvis. Appreciate the compliments there. I think we do need a defensive midfielder as well. I'll throw that in there. But I certainly agree with Elvis what he's saying there. What are your thoughts on the Real Madrid game, Helgi, and some of the comments we've had in the chat?
Yeah, first and foremost, before going to the Real Madrid game, about Mendy, something. So the last thing is that if you notice, his problems come a lot when he distributes the ball vertically rather than in the flanks. Has had a similar problem when he doesn't. So he hasn't put the right pace and power and direction. Let's say to distribute vertically happened against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final, and fortunately Thiago Silva was there to clear the ball of the goal line when Diaz, I think, tried to chip Mendy after Mendy kicking the ball without this kind of right pace and power, and also nearly ended up costing us in the Super Cup final when he slipped, I think, and then Gerard Moreno went one on one, and Mendy made a miraculous save and pushed the ball with his fingertips towards the post, and which was this is one aspect I think that he has to improve, to distribute the ball forward with more efficiency. And I think that the situation with Benzema was similar because he was in that exact kind of position when you just press him. I think from slightly behind, so he can, let's say, not put the right amount of pace and power to the ball. Yeah, so that's about that's it about him. And to move to Real Madrid game, I think it's one of those games when you really regret the manner in which you lose, not in a similar way to what happened against Brentford, because against Brentford you get disappointed through a manner that you let an underdog team dominate you and score 4 goals in your own backyard against you, while against Real Madrid you are angry because of the fact that you have a sort of regret about the possibility of turning it around in the second half had the mistake not happened. And I don't know if the things were such one-sided due to Real Madrid's quality. I don't know if we were very bad and Real Madrid aren't that impressive. This is something that time will tell. But the fact is that the fact why I am so angry and why I was so angry after the game, it was the license that we gave to Benzema when we knew that he was the biggest threat for them, and he has always been the biggest threat for them. Even last year, when we totally dominated them, their sporadic chances in 180 minutes played came from him. Their goal came from him in a spectacular fashion through acrobacy he made due to courtesy of a set piece situation. And I'm very disappointed with what I saw. Also, he is a great player, and of course, that had in 99% of cases he didn't execute it. So I'm talking about their first goal, because the distance from the goal and the pace and the direction he gives this is difficult to make it, even if you are one on one with your keeper and you have to shoot the ball with your feet rather than so let alone when you have a sort of first time had a situation like he had. And this demonstrates a lot so encapsulates his quality as a top three center forward in the world. The second goal was also a meticulously directed header and in the corner. So these were cases that we should have avoided, and we lacked the zonal discipline, which is the key, because we can go all day and say Christensen didn't play well. Yes, he didn't play well, and I was very angry at him. Thiago wasn't, as you mentioned, at his best, and also so all the back three or five, call it whatever you want, were on their best, were underwhelming, were disappointing. But this is how that's what worries me, because it was a problem of a phase rather than a problem of an individual, because it was repeated in more cases than their three goals. Benzema could have scored a hat trick at the end of the first half, and he missed a sitter. Our players were physically, let's say, average compared to Real Madrid. And then when we had our moments on the ball, we didn't have the passing accuracy, and also Ngolo wasn't at his best as well, which is a key player in this kind of games, has collected man of the match awards in a row, and he wasn't at his best either. But this is what worries me the most. So more than saying that what would the situation be had we lost with one goal difference, because this is a sort of hypothetical scenario, and the risk that Real Madrid pose with Benzema is the same, whether you win the first leg 1-0, whether you draw the first leg, whether you lose the first leg with one goal or with two goals, because they will always be risky and dangerous with such a let's say gunman up front. But what worries me is that, as Tuchel said after the game, is that we did this to ourselves rather than Real Madrid making it extremely hard for us. So I'm worried about our reaction to the game and our approach, rather than let's say saying that okay, we weren't at the right level, and we totally deserve to be beaten, because the stats talk otherwise. And I feel that maybe a 2-3 result would have been, let's say, a more appropriate one, due to the level of the game that was was produced. But this is the main talking point of it. I'm disappointed with Jorginho also, and I also disappointed with us not allowing Kovacic to express himself much, because he could have really made a difference if we had been, let's say, 1-2 down at around the 60th minute. He is one of the guys that has proved also when he comes from the bench that he can make an impact and energize the attack, and he did very well, although circumstances were very tough, even from a mental perspective. And even those chances that we had, we couldn't finish. So it was a miserable night from all things considered. But as I said, I want to point out that we could have avoided this defeat, and this is what hurts me the most. I'm not saying that to underrate Real Madrid's collective or individual quality, because it would be such arrogance and naivety to see the situation from this perspective. But I genuinely feel that we could have done much better, and could have been more precise on our work of the ball first and foremost. Hopefully, so hope this last, we will have a much better performance in the second leg. But there is no doubt that I was disappointed with what I saw.
Okay, yeah, great comment here from Coolcraft Cool saying, how is this the same Chelsea that only conceded 4 goals in March, but now 7 goals shipped at home in 2 matches in April? Very good question. To answer that, I have no idea, because the only thing that I can think to explain is the Brentford game, where our structure changed and left us more open. So that and the fact that Brentford pressed and harried us, that's an explanation for the 4 goals. But we reverted to our characteristic shape, or our more customary shape, against Real Madrid, and yet the goals came. I felt all 3 goals were avoidable, certainly the third goal. But if you give a world class player almost like a generational player like Karim Benzema. Two free headers. Don't be surprised when he scores two goals. So that's my take on it. And I'll admit that I didn't watch the game, but I did catch the clips of the game, and I saw passages of play in certain parts. And Helgi, you summed it up very very well. Um, I'll keep my sort of summary and my thoughts very short and sweet. But I think I put out a tweet where I said. And McCall's got a good point here where he says momentum is a fickle thing. International break and injuries have broken ours. Also, teams punishing us with clinical finishing lately, whereas in February, March, we were let off many times by opponents' misses. That's a very good point. Brentford seemed to score every goal with every shot they had on target. And of course, Real Madrid with the sort of high percentage headers. Benzema, a world class player like him, puts them both in. And then we shoot ourselves in the foot for the third goal. And then Thibaut Courtois starts to make world class saves, and we don't have any luck on
Everything
the
is
other
in
end.
fact, yeah.
So that's really where it goes. But what I will say is, I put out a tweet after the Real Madrid game, and as a Chelsea fan, this sort of condenses my feelings. In that, and you alluded to it as well, Helgi, in that the most frustrating thing for me is the fact that number one, we didn't turn up, and number two, I feel like we beat ourselves rather than Real Madrid beat us. So
Exactly.
that's the most irritating thing, is we are defending European champions, and I feel like we were not the defending European champions in that game. And it's all well and good seeing players come out with fighting talk and tweets and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to see any of that. I want to see that on the pitch. Don't show me on social media. I don't care about social media. Like, show it to me on the pitch. And one thing that's been glossed over a lot as well is that I find Mason Mount has been in very poor form recently. He's done well with in the Premier League with his goals and assist contributions. A lot of it stat padded by that Norwich game a little bit, where he got the hat trick, certainly in the goals column. But he's been playing well in isolation, but he's been well below his level that we were showing last season. And I think we don't want to get into a dangerous situation at Chelsea where we're playing players based on how they played before and not how they're playing now. So I think um, that we, like Harish is saying here, just a summary of the goals. First goal due to not marking Benzema. Second was due to not pressing Modric. These are very basics. We don't expect this in the Champions League quarterfinals. Quite right,
Totally.
Harish. That's exactly a very good point and what we were alluding to. But yeah, what I was saying is that we don't want to get into a culture where we are now allowing players to get comfortable. And I feel like I don't want to call for Mason Mount to be dropped, but I think some time on the bench to kind of rediscover that fire in him that he has when he knows he needs to prove himself. I think he needs a little bit of that, um, and I would like to see maybe Ziyech play a little bit because I think he's been in decent form lately, and I think he's got a lot to contribute. But one positive I'll take out of the Real Madrid game, and it's important as well not to be too negative. Good afternoon to Gabriel. Um, we have in Kai Havertz a very good player who's playing at a very, very good level. I mean, of course, takes his goal very well. He's moving well. He's linking well. He's sort of growing into this sort of this roving number nine role that he has, and I think he's certainly deserving and fulfilling the kind of potential that we have uh, always been waiting for him to show um, when we signed him in 2020. So that's a big positive, and hopefully he can persist with this to the end of the season because he's shown that he's a player for the big occasion. And we've got a lot of big games coming up, especially in the return leg in the Champions League, FA Cup semi-final next weekend. Um, so there's a lot to look forward to, and so that's one positive. And what do you think? Just a quick summary of Kai Havertz before we talk a little bit about the ownership and go on to the preview of Southampton.
Yeah, we have always said it, and I'm very delighted that he scored against Real Madrid. A very good executed header. Although he and his movement was excellent in the kind of attacking move because it's not easy to escape Militao's. I think it was Mark in such a fluid way to keep himself on side and then to execute that header. It was very very impressive to see from all of us, and I genuinely hope that he keeps this consistency because we have talked about in the other streams and we have been full of praise for him. We have been logically full of praise for him because he has mm, shown, let's say, this the fact that he has now gained consistency, and this is key for a young player who didn't have an easy, smooth adaptation to a new league, to a new culture, to a new way of playing football, to a new deployment from what Frank did in the beginning to try to put him to play him as a number eight more or less, which was totally, let's say, not so against the nature of the German football he had been involved in at Leverkusen. So credit to him for all the work he has done to make himself more versatile, and he came to make himself part of the team, to get himself involved in either small or big games, and also he has shown that he really cares and works hard for the team, and that's quite nice to see. And I genuinely hope that it continues and he keeps improving and improving. And as you said, he was the only positive of that night. Um, about Mason, I wrote a sort of short thread or tweet. I posted a tweet immediately after the game, and my stance on him is, let's say, anti-radical in comparison to what I have seen by many people, because unfortunately Mount has become, let's say, a way of creating that social media division, like it or not, between the fan base, which is so childish to see. For me, he isn't a useless player, like some say that he is
Oh no, come
overrated.
on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but there are many people who say that, in the sense that they want more technically flair players in those mold of Joao Felix or whoever, who can be more aesthetic than functional. And I totally disagree with them. I have said that. I also disagree with people who say that he is world class or a fundamental member of the team. I think he is just in between at the moment. Maybe this time last year, would have had a different discussion, but now he's just in between. Is he a decent player? Yes, he is. Does he deserve a new contract? Yes, he does. Is he a good squad member to have? Yes, he is. But is he at the, let's say, best possible level at the moment? No, he isn't, and that comes because I like him, and I know what he can become. I have been watching him since 2016-17 season when he was at the academy, and I know that he has the potential to be much better than he is now. He is very good, and he has earned his place in the team and deserves to be integrated for years to come. But he can improve for even more, and no one is immune for criticism because you play for Chelsea, and for this reason, it's not a shame to criticize a player constructively, and he has to be criticized constructively because he has lacked that kind of sharpness, especially in the last 20 meters in big games in particular. So we have to see more of that from him. So I'm in the balance at the moment. He's a very good player, but he has to improve even more and to become special consistently, which he is lacking, and fortunately Kai isn't at the moment. So that's my take on both of them.
Very good point. I'd like to say that I think anyone who comments about Mason being no good is a bit ridiculous. Mason's a wonderful player, and he's got a way to go to be world class. There's still some evolution that's needed. There's aspects of his game that need to improve. I think more goals, more consistent assists, and more sort of 7.5, 8 out of 10s rather than sort of 5.5 or 6 out of 10s. Um, that are needed before we enter that kind of conversation. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne was a they're not comparable. I'm just saying Kevin De Bruyne at Wolfsburg was a delightful player, and in his first couple of seasons at Man City again. but he wasn't world class until probably 2017. So that it shows you that even for a player who is probably demonstrably better than Mason Mount in Kevin De Bruyne, there's still a way to go, and Mason's still young. He's only
Of
just
course.
23, so he's still got at least probably 2 or 3, 4 years before he hits his peak. So that there's room to grow, but I think certainly he needs our support, and we need to understand that he's been operating at a very consistent level for someone who's so young and without having significant dips in form. So this is probably the first stage of his top class career where he's struggling a little bit. So um, or maybe struggling is a little bit hard, but a little bit harsh, but experiencing a bit of a low point in form. So I think it's important to have a little bit of balance with respect to Mason and realize that he's a good player. He's Chelsea through and through. He loves the club. He'll do his utmost for us, and he'll be the first one to work very hard to get back to where he wants to be, and definitely at a level where he knows he can be, and even beyond. Very interesting comment here that I want to talk about from Amal Abraham saying, "Don't you think Werner should have started instead of Pulisic?" I will reply with an emphatic hell no, because I think Timo Werner, if you want to have any idea of what Timo Werner's been like this season, go and watch his performance against Brentford. That should tell you everything you need to know
And
as
the
to
first half
why he should
against
not
Newcastle.
and the first half against Newcastle as to why he should not be starting a Premier League game or starting a game for Chelsea. I think the story for me, and it's very sad because he's a lovely guy and he's got a lot of talent, uh, but I think the story for Timo Werner and Chelsea is almost fully written, and I think. Come the summer, it's probably time. It's best for both parties to part ways because I just don't see it working out. And he's a square peg in a round hole. So to answer that question, no. Maybe Helgi, we can get a quick answer from you before we talk about the ownership situation.
Yeah, no, for me as well. I and the feelings of mine towards the situation are the same as yours. So I like the guy, and he came with such a big deal of expectation from all of us when he was signed. The way he was signed sort of seemed like a sort of hijack from Liverpool's hands, and it seemed so promising at the beginning. But actually, and also I think he did very well last season in certain aspects of his play. Of course, we didn't get the finisher that he was at Leipzig, or the guy that could use his speed at the maximum potential here. But nevertheless, he had positive elements, and it was a question of uh, positives outweighing the negatives. While now he just let's say suggesting he should have started instead of Pulisic, just revisionism from last year's second leg against Real Madrid, because I can't see any other logical reason why he should start. And I really doubt, as you said, that he will stay beyond the last half a month of the season with us. He has had too many chances, and he hasn't taken them well. So unfortunately, we have to part ways with him,
Yeah,
unless
quite right.
something changes. But as it stands,
Yeah, I think it's a bit unrealistic. It's just like I said, he's a bit of a square peg in a round hole. Because he's not. He's one. His foremost attribute is his pace and his awareness and his willingness to get in behind. And he's playing in a league where defenses that play against top teams like Chelsea sit very deep and deny any kind of space. So he has no space to operate in. He's come from a league in Germany where everybody or the majority of teams, even lower down the leagues, like to play that sort of progressive pressing, high style of football with a very high defensive line. So he's got lots of space to run in behind, and if not, there's space for midfielders to create for him, and that simply doesn't exist in England. Like defenses are comfortable playing a lot deeper. Um, he's quick over short bursts, but he's not skillful enough either with his dribbling to create space for himself. even in short bursts to deliver assists. So I just don't think he has the kind of skill set needed, and he certainly can't play as a lone number nine. Um, he's just, especially in the way that Chelsea play, he's not strong enough to create space. He's not good enough on the ball to link up with other players. He can't bully defenders. So it wouldn't work. And it would be intriguing for me to see how Timo did in a system like at Leicester, for example. If he was like someone who played in place of Jamie Vardy, that's maybe a role that where he could uh, where he could thrive. But the Chelsea
I
just don't play that way, so I don't know. But like with Kyle saying, yeah, Timo plays in his head too much, needs to be more direct. Even his crosses come after hesitation instead of first time. Like Mikhail raises a good point as well, and you saw it in against Brentford. I don't know which defender he was up against, but he receives the ball out wide, and he instead of sort of taking on his man and being strong, he kind of gets within himself, and he's lost a little bit of confidence to take him on, and he kind of just gives up a physical battle. So that's where I think it's just a little bit off for Timo. What do you think, Helgi?
I think that taking people on has been one of his weakest points since he joined the club. So I couldn't have expected anything better. He has never had the encouragement to take people on and go towards the byline for us. He does go towards the byline when he, as you said, gets the pass from deep, and then he can use his space and run on the wide corridors. But he rarely takes people on in the way many fans could have expected from him due to his Leipzig days. But even at Leipzig, he wasn't really praised for that, rather than playing as a decoy, a kind of an El Carol between Patrick Schick at the time, who was the main striker up front in Nagelsmann 3-5-2. But he wasn't a number nine, and he wasn't a prolific natural winger either. So it's
It's like a 9.5, like almost in between the two,
exactly that. It's sort of a
or
sort
like a
of
ten and a
decoy.
half. Yeah,
Yeah, a sort of decoy. So something in between wing and sent
second striker.
the
Yeah,
front of the
yeah,
attack. Yeah, and
yeah.
Tuchel did his best to accommodate him in such a position by deploying the 3-4-2-1, which theoretically was very good for a player
With
like
the
him to position himself in the
with
half
the
space
with the
and
two tens.
support
Yeah,
to support the long striker from close distances. And he struggled a lot, as you said, nevertheless, by so against teams who played in a low block, and he still keeps doing it. So this is the main issue, and unfortunately, I don't see a way to improve the situation. Mikhail saying that, but Karl Hudson-Odoi guilty the same as Werner. Maybe yes, I'm not denying that. I have liked the Doy at the academy, but he has become, let's say, frustratingly one-dimensional, and this is what I hate from him, because shooting was one of his best traits when he was young. I remember an FA Youth Cup final against Man City, second leg. Chaloba scored the opener from a corner, and I think Callum scored the fifth goal for us. We won 5-1, and it was a spectacular finish from a considerably tight angle.
is
And
that when he
the
went
ball,
round the when he went round the defenders and then sort of like chipped it from a tight angle into the goal, or that
yeah,
long
it,
run?
it went into the right, so top left corner, I think, but
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was by Stamford Bridge, and and also he could score free kicks for fun. And this is what amazes me, because many people may argue and say that it's the natural transition that happens with a young player, especially a forward player that boosts flair like him, that has the kind of problems when he comes to the moment comes for him to progress from the academy system to the first team. And I completely agree with that if you talk about his dribbling, because maybe the experience and positioning and the reading of the game of the fullbacks can be much difficult to beat, but shooting is an independent feature, and I so shooting is all on yourself. So why isn't he having the same sort of accuracy that he did? So he has to fix that. And yeah, more or less, Odoi and Werner has been the most underwhelming attackers of all, even though the others haven't been Chelsea level on a consistent basis. Fortunately, as we said, Kai is showing very positive signs, and I hope he keeps them on. But about Callum and Werner, I'm disappointed with both.
Very good point. And Macau with a bunch of comments here saying Broja, Lukaku, Havertz front three, please. I think we'd all like to see that, at least in theory, as to how it would work. I'm not sure where the creation is going to come from, but nevertheless, that would be
No,
all out
no,
firepower.
Lukaku and Broja at the same place. I think it's too unbalanced because
Yeah,
they are both big guys. Lukaku, I don't see him coming back in the first 11 anytime soon. And
yeah,
I think the most ideal scenario is to keep the same attacking structure with Havertz up front and Broja rotating, similarly to what we had last season with Havertz up front many games, including a Champions League final, and Giroud being a quality option on the bench rather than play both of them, let's say, at the same time, which could end up restricting both of them.
yeah. Cool. And we're going to talk about Broja a little bit later.
Yeah.
But let's talk about let's sort of wrap this up and let's talk a bit about the ownership situation. There's not much that we could talk too much about, but I saw a little bit of information from the Athletic, and from a positive standpoint, I don't really want to talk about the rickets too much because they irritate me, and I've made my feelings known very well with that respect. And I think from that point of view, I think it's become a little bit tiresome. Um, and I think what I would say is that from that point, I think that there's a big difference between sort of Todd Boehly's bid and the Ricketts bid in the sense that the Ricketts are doing a lot of talking in the media and not too much on the ground. And I saw a picture, a little video clip of Todd Boehly in his jeans and a Chelsea scarf and just regular civilian clothing walking through the Britannia Gate into Stamford Bridge with his ticket in hand, very
Okay.
humble, very yeah, and a cap, just going to watch Chelsea play, and that's exactly the kind of image that I want to see as a fan. There's no frills, there's no fanciness, there's no helicopters, no limit. He's just there for the football. He's like almost like one of us. That's what I want to see, and perhaps I'm biased in this process, but I think as a fan that's allowed. I mean, if you're looking at an ownership situation of people bidding for your club, if you have a favorite, I think that you should punt for them. In my opinion, that's kind of where I am with it. And I just think that from the Bowley bid perspective, um, there haven't been as many red flags as any other bid, and a lot of it has been positive. I think there's good momentum behind it. He has a good record of with LA Dodgers. He said the right things in the media. He's kept a low profile with respect to the PR. He's not said or done anything untoward. I haven't learned of any skeletons in his closet with respect to bad things that he's done or said. I mean, it's naive of me to assume that any billionaire is clean, squeaky clean, because they're not. And I'm not pretending that he is. But I think from the more I learn of him, and today there's been a development in the sense of the Bowley bid in that Mark Walters, who's a majority owner of the LA Dodgers, has now
Yeah.
joined the bid. So he's now providing extra financial backing. And as I understand, the process of the Chelsea sale now is progressing to the point where Rain, I think, is getting the bidders to close out their consortiums and to receive their final bit of financial backing. So essentially, the initial bidding process was sort of the sale of the club and the amount that they would pay. But now I think that the Rain are getting everybody to compile their full consortium and so trying to maximize their financial uh, portfolio for Chelsea before then they make a recommendation to the British government. But from that point of view, I've liked what I've seen about Todd Boehly. That image for me, the little video of him walking into the club, was perfect for me. That's what I wanted to see. But I know from the Ricketts standpoint, I think it's Laura Ricketts has come out. She's a member of the LGBTQ plus community. She does a lot of advocacy in that sense. I think there's one of the other Ricketts as well who does good work with the LGBTQ community. I applaud that, but that doesn't help me too much in the context of the family itself and the fact that I don't want them to take over. I haven't heard much about Stephen Pagliuca's bid or the other one. There's a fourth one I'm not quite sure of. I think it's Martin Broughton's bid. I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
heard too much about either of those. So I think there's a lot of noise from both perspective, from a lot of noise about the Ricketts from them, and there's a lot of positive momentum about Todd Boehly. So I think Boehly looks to be the favorite at the moment. But I've given my thoughts. I hope Todd Boehly wins, and I hope this sale process, above all, what I'll end off by saying is, I hope this progresses quickly, and we can have a resolution by sort of middle of May, so that we can start to begin to plan for next season. But anyway, that's what I've said. Um, so, what do you think, Helgi?
Yes, spot on. You summarized it perfectly. Actually, it was a great sort of mm, pre of um, let's say review of any kind of deal that we have had to discuss about also in the other episodes, because it has become a monthly affair now, and it and we have to just challenge ourselves now into keeping ourselves updated, because we are all exhausted and worn out with all the ownership discussion and news and every new development. So you said it very well, that I hope that it comes to the end point now, so we can proceed normally, especially from a mental point of view. But my own perspective is that uh, everyone is doubtful, in the sense that we don't know much of them, and I won't let myself get totally carried away by anybody, in the sense of having blind hopes, due to the sole reason of trying to avoid myself any sort of disappointment. I don't want to think negatively, because they have been a tough month for us, in all things considered. But nevertheless, I think that the issue has been to to um, to point out that, relatively speaking, Bori has ultimately, I think, the best bid of all, due to the lack of controversy, due to the lack of people, let's say, spoiling the bid with bad ownership, past or present, such as the rickets do, or sort of socio-political or ethical problems that they have had. And even if you leave aside the social and political and every kind of other factors that you may take into discussion, if you to create that kind of personal opinion, I feel that solely on footballing wise, I think that LA Dodgers are much better run. I don't have a clue about baseball, but the information is very promising, which is an indication that he can and has shown to have kept his word, Boyle, despite the fact that he has the only 20% of stake there. And one thing I'm very thankful about is today's news, which has to do with Borley, involving the principal owner of LA Dodgers, I think Mark Walter, if
Yeah,
I'm not wrong.
Mark Walters. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, in the bid, which pretty much erases all the doubts about the impact that Borley could have, in terms of the percent of the stake that he has at possesses at LA Dodgers, and how impactful he would be at us. It's shown that he can has proved now that we it's pointless to discuss about this, because he has a chairman backing him as well. who simultaneously is the CEO of the I don't exactly remember the name of the company that he has, or
Yeah,
the bank
it
that he
begins with
has.
an E. I think it's like Eldridge or something.
No, not his own company. I think it's the main company that or bank. I'm not so sure. It's that supports LA Dodgers as well financially, and but nevertheless, my point is that he has shown that he can create a very well funded bid, and has given indications both rationally and sentimentally speaking. The first being about the construction of his bid, and the second being on his appearance before the game against Real Madrid, which was very impressive to see. PR related or not, this is something that would be left to the time, but the fact that he was caught by the cameras in sort of, let's say, hidden way rather than a sort of, because so it wasn't Boehly giving an interview deliberately. It was journalist work who made it possible for us to watch him come. And these are all impressive signs that he can work in silence. He has included Chelsea fans in his boardroom, and also he has shown the one other thing that I like from him, and I mentioned last week, was that he isn't in favor of a total rebuild of the stadium from the roots, from the scratch, which is a big positive, because otherwise I think that it wouldn't be another better proof for a bad owner if that ex-owner decides to fully construct Stamford Bridge from the beginning, which would be a very damaging move, in my opinion, in terms of club's prosperity and well-being on the pitch for years to come. And Burnley wants to raise the capacity stand by stand, which is a very big positive. The fact that he has involved the principal owner of LA Dodgers is very big positive, and also one of the biggest debates I have had with people so are in doubt of both, or there is a minority, I think, in Twitter who supports the Ricketts bid due to Ken Griffin's, let's say, involvement in the bid and his net worth. I think it's just financial reasons, and I have mentioned it, and I stick by it, that don't guarantee success. They don't necessarily guarantee success in modern football, because it's all about having execution, having plan, and you have absolutely no guarantee that Ken Griffin will put money into the club. And what's more important is that the Telegraph reported that he wouldn't take care of the everyday executive duties of the club, and that would be left on Ricketts' hands, which is an absolutely horrible scenario. And I don't know how people keep blindly hoping that they would keep the club in an elite level with all this funding, when they don't even know how much they will spend, and as I said, how they will execute the club. Our club isn't an experiment, so we should base on what, so the actions of the bidders at their respective NFL or no, so baseball club, sorry. And the fact is that the Dodgers are very well run. They're invited by their rivals, while Chicago Cubs have their own problems. They have salary cuts to talk about. They have a bad reputation, a notorious reputation of selling their best players. They have a bad reputation of focusing solely on developing the field, the Wrigley Field, if I'm not wrong with the name that they have. So many red flags, and also what ultimately makes them a very negative option, in my opinion, because I don't want to create a black and white discussion, but these are facts. Is that Ken Griffin has involved also a kind of so another party, which is a basketball owner. I don't remember the name now, in his consortium, when theoretically why he should have done that based on his net worth. So it's another big red flag, this one. So ultimately, and for me, without any kind of doubt, Boehly's consortium seems best for all things considered, because I would rather have an owner who can have a lower net worth, but that net worth he will from that net worth he will make sure that he would put it in the service of the club and spend wisely and with great execution, rather than having an owner who will have a lot of money into his pockets and seek for more money through the club and seeing it as a franchise. And personally speaking, these are signs that Rickets consortium are giving to me, while Boehly's consortium is giving me reason for hope. And as you said, I really hope that win the 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 race to get the club to take the club over, and this ends sooner rather than later.
Yeah, good point. And something that I want to talk about is Mikhail's comment's been hanging up here for quite a while. He says, I think the government will shoot down Bowley and Ricketts for different reasons, leaving Broughton and Pagliuca. Probably Broughton wins. And I question why the government would shoot down Bowley's bid, because nothing
Yes,
I've
spot
read
on.
so far, the one thing I've read, everything I've read so far doesn't seem to be that there are any red flags with respect to Bowley's bid. I wouldn't know why he would be shot down unless it's on some kind of unbeknownst technicality that we're not aware of. I wouldn't know why. There's no sort of negative energy or no red flags. I really wouldn't know why. So I'd like Macau to maybe you know something we don't. So let us know if you've read something that we haven't, or you have some information that we don't. Please give us a shout. We'd love to talk about that. Um, but yeah, from I think there was some later comments as well with respect to the bidding process. As I understand that the first part of the bidding process or the sale process is done now, um, in the sense of finding bidders or potential buyers for Chelsea. That's progressed now, and the four names now, and that needs to be whittled down further. Where Rain then gives a recommendation to the British government, and they go through their process. Um, of due diligence to try and see if this is a suitable owner for Chelsea, and then it goes to the Premier League as well for the fit and proper test and the backgrounds that they check on on these people. So I think all in all, the sale could probably go through maybe in a couple of months if we're optimistic. Um, I think the record for the fit and proper test for the Premier League is 6 weeks. But I think many in that I've been reading and hearing, particularly Matt Law on the London is Blue podcast, he's been saying that the Premier League seem to think that they could beat that record, um, such as the level of attention that has gone around this Chelsea sale. But yeah, I think we've condensed our thoughts into that. We've been going for nearly an hour and a half now, so I think we need to keep it a little bit short. But should we have a little bit of a chat about the Southampton game, Helgi? Maybe give us your thoughts briefly. What you expect from the game, maybe your predicted lineup, the kind of shape we can see, and maybe if you think that we will get the win away and sort of turn around our fortunes. Give us a shout on that.
Yeah. Before starting on that, I said Mikhail's comment says will four bids be presented to government for approval before Roman decides winner. Personally, I don't know all the details in a micro way. I think Roman will decide the winner, and then the things will carry on in a formal way. I don't really expect the government, let's say, shutting down so Bowley's bid as Dan said. So it's exactly the same opinion from me. So common sense says that Roman decides from the shortlist, and then everything else becomes bureaucratic more than substantial, in my opinion. About the Southampton game, I think that the first and foremost, I'm really intrigued and hope that we will have a very different approach to the game compared to what we had against Brentford and Real Madrid from a psychological perspective, because you can't excuse what we have done, and you need the exact kind of fighting spirit that Thomas Tuchel's interview after Real Madrid's game indicated. One of the cases that you have seen, so one of the rare cases you have seen him that angry after a game. And I hope that the guys and the players will so the guys on the pitch and also the staff will have um, we'll have a massive preparation of the game. Tuchel confirmed today that they had a meeting after Real Madrid game, which I really hope that has will prove to have been worth it in the sense of clearing the minds and being fully focused on the upcoming games, which come thick and fast now with the end of the season approaching. But the for tomorrow's game, it won't be easy in principle because if you remember, even the same fixture last season, we struggled in the first half and rescued the point through Mason Mount's penalty early in the second one. And hopefully we'll have a game when we will dominate. We are expected to do it. I say it with a sense of war due to the let's say the struggle that we have had in the last few games, so in the last couple of games. But hopefully we will enjoy the consistency and the passing accuracy and the chances creation that we had before the international break, because it could prove to be crucial if we turn up tomorrow for the momentum for the next week when we have two other crucial games against Real Madrid and, as you said, the FA Cup final, the FA Cup semi-final, sorry, against Crystal Palace in the weekend. And it's a game that we theoretically have to win. Also with Southampton not having Broja um, at their disposal, their availability, they play a compact 4-4-2 usually, and with Adams and Broja often leading the line and supporting each other. As Adams is a player to watch. He's very fluid in attack and can also show that he can damage teams of different levels in the league. So he isn't that kind of just saying bottom 10 level player in his regularity. Is a kind of guy that can provide sort of threat if not marked well. But all in all, I really do expect an improvement for our side, because we are in on the back of two defeats that when I think that we have created them to ourselves, especially the midweek games. So I really think that if we are at our best and we have reflected from the games against Brentford and Real Madrid, then we will have no problems. Um, Reese coming back is a is a big positive after the international break. He hasn't had the best way to express himself due to all the team being underwhelming, but hopefully will play well and he will have his impact also from wide areas. We can target them, and we really need him, especially knowing, as I said, that Southampton play a compact 4-4-2, which becomes a 4-2-2-2 in attack, and so we will try to they will try to congest, I think, the central areas. Did it very well with central pressure in the reverse fixture. So we absolutely needed to switch the play in the flank. If you remember Werner's goal to give us the lead when Barkley,
The
um,
Barkley assist, yeah. Yeah.
Barkley gave the pre-assist. I think Aspi
Yeah, Aspie
gave
with the assist, yeah, yeah. That
the
that
assist.
great little, almost like that sort of pitching wedge. It was like a golf shot from Barkley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's spot on. So the switch of play was excellent, and I think we will need all those kind of passes tomorrow as well, due to Southampton, I think, basing a lot of their on and off the ball game from the center. So hopefully Reese will be at his best for this kind of reason, knowing that we play with no natural wingers. He practically does the job of the winger when we have the ball. And also, I really hope that Kai will have a great game as well. The other attacking guys, if we have reflected from the games of the last weekend and midweek, I expect Mendy on goal despite the mistake in midweek. Would go with Rudiger, Thiago, and Aspi in back three. I don't want to see Christensen anytime soon in starting 11, because for me, he isn't there from psychologically. He's with his
Yeah,
mind at Barcelona, and I
yeah,
really doubt he has to start any kind of crucial game up to from now until the end of the season because it'd be too big of a risk. Um, in I see Alonso starting on the left and Reese on the right. Um, would go with would go with Kovacic has to start this game. I doubt in between Golo and Jorginho, knowing that Southampton, I think, would press from the center. Maybe you will need Golo's intercepting abilities or vertical passes. So I would go with Kovacic and Golo, and in attack, in attack, as you said, we maybe we'll have to pull the plug and rest Mount for this and start with Pulisic and Ziyech behind Havertz. So this is all in all what I expect and how we can face a team that will expect it to be compact on and off the ball tomorrow as they are in many big games under Hasenhüttl, and has shown that they can be very bad when they aren't at their best, but also they can be tricky to play against when you aren't at their best yourself. So the first thing I want tomorrow is reaction, and a very positive one, translated into goals. Why not tomorrow from our side?
yeah. Very good point and good summary, particularly of Southampton's shape. I like what you said there. The very good analysis of their shape, the 4-4-2 that sort of changes it to 4-2-2-2 in attack. I certainly noted that myself, so I won't step on your toes with that respect. I'm just going to talk briefly about what I'd like to see with respect to Chelsea. But there was one comment, I think, from Josh who said, do you think we still have a chance to go to the semis in the Champions League? I think I'll stick with what Thomas Tuchel said. No, I think the tie is finished, and that's what Tuchel said. So, unfortunately, maybe there's a slim chance if we score first in the Bernabeu, but I just think the tie is finished, and I think Real Madrid did the job. So I don't think it's likely we go. I think I did say before that the tie against Real Madrid that this is as far as we go in the Champions League, and unfortunately, I'm very sad to say that I think I might be proven right. But yeah, it's just a bit of a sad thing. I think just that the manner of how we lost, and it gives us too much to do in the second leg, and it's at the Bernabeu. Not that that's necessarily uh, Europe's greatest fortress when it comes to home wins, but nevertheless, it's uncomfortable to have to go away and win and win at least 2-0 just to force extra time. So from that point of view, Josh, I think it is finished. But anyway, moving on to Southampton. Um, what I will say is what I'd like to see from the team is a lot more intensity and defensive structure and compactness and sort of just doing the basics right with respect to picking up your man and not leaving unnecessary spaces and swarming the ball and making sort of decisive acts in defense with respect to like if Mendy happens to get the ball in a similar situation just to clear it um, rather than to just take a no risk approach and do the basics right against Southampton. So just to kind of reset and start again and give us a foundation, maybe even something like a 1-0 win or a very small margin of victory. I think we do need a win because not that we are getting necessarily dragged into a top four battle, but if Arsenal do win their games in hand, I think they fall 2 points behind us. So we don't want to unnecessarily get dragged into a top four scrap. And I think the sooner we can win our remaining 8 or 9 games, the better. I think we need probably about 5 or 6 to guarantee top four or guarantee third place. Um, so I think the sooner we get closer to that mark, the better. And it's also always good to not be too far away from Man City and Liverpool. I said, just from my personal opinion, at the beginning of the season, if we could finish less than 10 points behind both of them, I think that's a significant improvement on the gap. Just a single digit gap is a lot easier to bridge than, like a 19 point or a 22 point or a 30-point gap, what it's been in the previous seasons. Um, so yeah, against Southampton, I know because Hassan Hutel is of the sort of Ralph Rangnick German uh, school of football. He's gonna Southampton do like to press. They do like to play quite high up the pitch at times and try to force mistakes. So I think we can anticipate a similar treatment to Brentford, but perhaps not quite as gung ho as Brentford. But they certainly Southampton will look to put Chelsea under pressure. So that's something that we'll have to deal with. Um, but yeah, I think I echo what you said with respect to the 11s. I would like to see a return to three at the back. I'd be intrigued to see who plays left wing back. I think we do need the width. And thanks for the love there, Viola. Appreciate it. Um, I'd be interested to see if Alonso plays. I don't know if he's fit. I think he is fit, but I think just to give us the more natural width, I think we would need that. That would be beneficial from a wing back point of view. But I echo what you say about Kovacic. I think he needs to start, um, and I think Kovacic and Jorginho would be my pick in midfield. Just to get, I like Kovacic, the balance he provides us, and his ability to sort of turn defense into attack, to dribble, to avoid tight situations and to lay on even a pass to like our front players. I like what he does, and also something that I think is underrated about Mateo is his ability to put in necessary tackles when we get turned over quickly. You know, just to foul players to ensure that we don't get um, taken apart on a counter attack. He's very good at that. And putting in sort of a foul that's not worthy of a yellow card, but enough to stop the counter attack. So I like that about him. I know it's not always the most um, morally sound aspect of the game. I suppose it's a little bit cynical, but I like that aspect of Kovacic. He's sort of got that awareness. Um, and the front three I'd like to see as well. As I'm hopeful to see Ziyech play. I'd like to see Ziyech, Havertz, and Pulisic. I think that's got good balance. I think Ziyech as well has demonstrated good form recently, and I think he's always capable, even when Chelsea have tight games, or necessarily poor games, of coming up with something that something spectacular that wins us the game. So those are really my thoughts on it, and that's how I see it. I'm hoping for a narrow Chelsea win. I can see a narrow Chelsea win, to hopefully put behind us the two very bad results against Brentford and Real Madrid, and hopefully give us a little bit of momentum going into the latter part of what is a big month of April for Chelsea. So I don't know if you have any lasting thoughts, but Helgi, if you want to round up your thoughts going into the weekend, but I think we can, after what you have to say now, I think we can round off the stream.
Yeah, the only thing to that has remained to talk about now, I think it's about Armando Broja's progress at Southampton. We talk
Yeah.
about him shortly a little ago due to I think Mikhail's comment, but specifically speaking, I have also watched him during the national team games when the national team had manager has been very criticized for playing Broja from the bench in many games in our in the national team Albania, so World Cup qualifying campaign. And against Hungary in both games, he came off the bench and scored the winner. So 1-0 at home and 1-0 in Budapest, which was very impressive to see from a young man who really represents that kind of unique profile that the national team, and I am speaking now as an Albanian, lacks and has lacked for many years. He's the first Albanian player to score in the Premier League, and also he's a different class when he plays for the national team and also Southampton due to one of the features that I mentioned from Lotus Cheek before his injury. I'm reiterating it now for Broja, is that he's very good when it comes to being coordinated. So balancing his height with his work on the ground is such a unique way of adjusting yourself. The way he keeps the ball under his control, doesn't release it too much, let's say too far away from his feet, and also it's that gives that kind of illusion that when he's one-on-one situations will immediately lose the ball or get messed with his own feet, but actually he brings the game to his own pace more often than not. Of course, he isn't perfect at this, and also he has many things to improve, and he's still young, and depending on us signing a new striker or not in the summer, I could be also open to another loan if it is beneficial for him, because it's easy to get carried away. Equally, I would love to keep him in the team if Tuchel judges it right. But I'm very delighted and proud that he has made his name known in the now in the European stage of football, and also he has been significant for Southampton. And from a Chelsea perspective, I'm very so from a Chelsea fan perspective, I'm very delighted that he won't play tomorrow because he's very efficient, and I'm also very intrigued to see how well he can do in a system that uh, aims to recycle possession like we do so much more on the Southampton, which base the game solely on pressing rather than spending periods on the ball while we do this both. So it's a mix of possession, total football, and also high pressing strategy. And I would like to see him, like him a lot, to see him involved in tight areas, what he can do with one touch situations, how we can use his physicality at a team like us. And I think he will do very well. But all in all, I'm very proud with his progress, with what he is doing. I'm very proud that his loan has been spot on so far, because it's also the process of finding a club for a player who is emerging is also a tricky one in hindsight, and I think we got it spot on in this case. I'm very thankful that we have tied him down to a long-term contract just before he left on loan, which gives me assurances that he will stay. And I genuinely hope, from an Albanian and compatriot perspective, and above all as a Chelsea fan perspective, that he will shine from us and will become a top player in the near future and also in the long one as well.
Quite right, very well said, and I think it's very good from your point of view as an Albanian to have someone who plays for the team that you love. Um, so I think if I had a Zimbabwean player who played for um, Chelsea, I would certainly want to see them succeed. And I think what you highlighted there was some of his attributes. Um, and thank you to Fairboy for the positive comment. Really appreciate that. Really means a lot to have comments like that. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'm excited to see Broja play for Chelsea in the sense that I'm interested to see how his characteristics fit the Chelsea the Chelsea 11, because I see whenever I watch him, he reminds me a lot of Diego Costa for his tenacity and his ability to operate in tight spaces and just his like he's not afraid of a physical battle, but he's also not slow. He's quite quick as well, and he's
Yeah, too
very
aggressive.
yeah, he's aggressive, and he's got pretty good ball control. He's a decent finisher as well. I think he's the profile of forward that Chelsea need. That he's not like Lukaku, but he's also not like Werner. He's not in the middle, but he's very much his own kind of striker, and I think he'd be able to do a lot of good things in the Chelsea system. I would like to see what his on the ball work is like in terms of sort of his ability, because Southampton don't do a lot of that with linking with their forwards. They use their forwards a lot more as like a reference point than a sort of engage them in the play, like you said, with their pressing structure. Um, so I'd like to see that, because that's a task that's required of a Chelsea number nine, is to engage and link the play with the players around them. I'd like to see him what he's like in that context, dropping deep and sort of combining with midfield players and wing backs, and then sort of inside forwards. So that's one intriguing aspect. But I think he has a bright future, and like you said, I'm very very glad that he was tied down to a long term contract. That's one young player we don't really have to worry about losing anytime soon, hopefully. And I'm hopeful that he will make the grade next season at Chelsea and get a shot, even if not necessarily as the first choice forward, but as one who plays sort of 20 to 25 games as the support striker, and one who starts key games and probably could force his way into the team. Um, but is there anything else we really want to round off on Helgi? Or I think we can call the stream here, right?
Yeah, I think it was we mentioned everything we had to mention. This is um, Fraser's comment. Met laws are constants within the squad of the future of players, contract transfers, targets, and even Chelsea's wage policy following the delay of the club's takeover. Uh, well,
That's
this isn't something that seems unexpected because
yeah, it's only natural, and
everyone needs guarantees about
it's not yeah, it's not good news, but it's just a product of the uncertain time that we find ourselves in. I don't
Yeah,
think
I think
necessarily.
exactly the same. I think it will be solved very soon, and the fact that rain has delayed the deadline of handing in the last improved bids by only 3 days, I don't think it changes much in the big picture of things because Metro confirmed that it has gone from 11th of April to 14th of April. So I'm not an expert, but from the outside, it doesn't make too much of a difference to go from a calm and a short stay to a to a warring one. So I think it will be solved over time.
Yeah, I think what we're probably looking at is like as we start to hit these milestones, like the 14th of April, maybe like the end of the once it goes to the government. I think we'll see, all we need to see is progress, and I think that's what the players and the staff inside Chelsea need to see as well. Is we need to accelerate the process needs to move forward now. You know, we've been doing this bidding and for the better part of the last 6 weeks, so I think it needs to progress now to the next phase and to get the owner sort of chosen and then some certainty can move forward because to my mind, and this is what I say as an outsider looking in as a fan, I think once, say for example, it's Todd Boehly who's the choice, right? And it gets put to the government and it gets put to the Premier League, and it looks as though it's positive and it might happen. Then plans can start to be drawn up, and sort of the owner can start to identify people that may be put in key positions, and to talk about weight structures and things like that, and conversations can start to begin with players and staff and things like that, and with regarding transfer targets, contracts, and things like that. So these are the kinds of decisions, key decisions that lots of stakeholders within Chelsea will need certainty on. And it doesn't surprise me in any business if you have a change of owner, or in any situation if you have a change of personnel. Um, you know, the uncertainty is bound to happen. So I think that that's only natural, and these kinds of issues will be solved as soon as the sale process has been uh, completed or progressed to a point of certainty. And I think that's all we need now. And that's not things that we can control as fans or even the players or the staff. I think the person we need to look to is Thomas Tuchel, who has spoken very eloquently and effectively on the matter. It's not within their control. They're engaging in things that they can control, which is on the football pitch, and they're doing the best we can. So there realistically are real fears amongst the stakeholders at Chelsea, and those are only natural. And I wouldn't say they should be encouraged, but they shouldn't be dismissed either. I mean, players and staff have a responsibility to look after themselves and their own livelihoods. Um, but I think we can only hope for the best, and yeah, just keep our finger on the buzzer, and sort of have a look with respect to how this thing progresses, because it's anybody's guess as to when the certainty comes. But we can all just sort of sit and hope for the best. But I think that's about it from us. Hey, Helge, any final words?
Thanks again for another episode. Hope everyone has enjoyed, and we're doing our best to cover the club in the most constructive and let's say rational possible way without any kind of um, agenda or what you can call. We do our best to summarize things from a critical perspective, and hopefully next time we will talk about wins and not losses in terms of the results. I think it's there are also two other games. Um, there is 1% of hope for the second leg of the Champions League. Hopefully, we turn it around, and I say hopefully because hope has remained. An early goal would be crucial. But yeah, more or less that's it. Very happy to be part of this show, as I always say it, and I have to reiterate it because the more episodes we make, the more I enjoy it, and hopefully it's the same for you, and hopefully the same for people who watch us. It's an honor for me to have known Dan as a person first and foremost, and then as a co-host of the show. And I hope that our collaboration lasts for a very very long time, because I personally really enjoy to be part of this project, and hopefully you all enjoy as well, the same as me, and I'm sure that Dan has the same feeling and assessment as well.
Absolutely, Helgi. Thanks for the kind words, and I'll reiterate them and send them right back to you. I really enjoy how you analyze the game and how you have this sort of genuine passion and love for Chelsea, and I appreciate that. And it's very easy to do this show when you're talking to someone who shares the level of passion and love for the club that you do. And certainly, I do very much enjoy the way that you approach things and how you analyze uh, everything in such sort of detail and with a lack of bias, but also a lot of thought and so you're just very thorough. So I appreciate that, and I genuinely look forward to doing many more shows with you. And yeah, long may it continue. But to everybody in the chat, so many of you have engaged, from Mikhail to Viola to Fairboy to I think Steve was there to I'm forgetting everybody's name, and I'm really sorry for that. But we really appreciate all the support, all the kind words, and but from us, that's it for now, and we'll see you for the next show. Take care and up the Chels.